Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to take a listen to the little baby Friedman JJ, and it was custom voiced for Jerry Cantrell. Alright, if this is your first time here, welcome to my channel, and if you enjoy the content, please consider subscribing to help my channel grow and to get these videos out there to new viewers just like yourself. Okay, so as you probably already know by now, this is the 20-watt baby brother of the full-size JJ amp that was designed by Dave Friedman in collaboration with Jerry Cantrell of Alice in Chains. Now, before I go any further, I gotta give a huge shout out to my friends at Zzounds for sending me this amp to try out and to let you guys hear what it's all about. And if you want to grab one of these, or you want the more powerful 100-watt Big Brother version of this amp, I'll have affiliate links to those in the video description, along with everything else that I'm using in the video to make all of this happen. And I've also got to give a big shout out to our singer for providing me with this G&L Rampage. This is the Legacy Edition to try out with the amp. It's a very dark sounding guitar, but kind of got like a really fat, kind of creamy low end to it. I'll probably switch to something a little bit brighter, this just my preference, but I did want to go ahead and kind of give this guitar the proper pairing with this amp to kind of get the full Jerry Cantrell experience here. Okay, so this little guy is a 2.5 channel, maybe 2.5 channels. It's a 20-watt amp, and it has a nice open clean channel and 2 different drive modes on the lead channel that unfortunately are not foot switchable, but there is a volume difference between each mode. So switching between the two probably really wouldn't have worked out unless Dave maybe figured out a way to equalize those volumes out, but you probably heard that in the intro playing. The amp uses a pair of EL84s and 312AX7s, and just like every Friedman amp, it is hand-built by the men and women at Boutique Amp Distribution out in California, and Dave himself personally playtest every single amp before it goes out to the retailers. One other thing to note about this is that if the guys on the forums who own the full-size JJ and have played this smaller one are to be believed, then this little guy is essentially a carbon copy of the Big Brother's tone, but just not quite as loud or authoritative with the note delivery at less than half the price. the clean channel is in the middle brightness selection now. Definitely a lot darker on that setting. All right, let's crank the gain up and see what it does. Alright, so as you can hear, there is a decent amount of clean headroom, and it takes quite a bit to push it into overdrive, and once it does, it's not too harsh or abrasive. It kind of sounds like maybe like an overdrive pedal being kind of lightly pushing a clean channel. Okay, now the drive channel on this amp has two modes that you've already heard, and you toggle between the two modes with the switch over here, the JBE switch. And when this is engaged, the amp produces more gain, more saturation, and it compresses a bit more. And this mode also drops the overall output down just a little bit. And when the JBE mode is turned off, the amp is louder, it's more open, uncompressed, and has less gain, but is by no means low gain either. And I personally prefer running it in that mode because it cleans up a little bit better for a nice low to mid gain crunch. And it could potentially eliminate the need for going to the clean channel altogether if you've got enough range with your volume pedal and the volume knob. And I also think that it reacts a little bit better with the boost hitting it hard compared to the JBE mode. But the JBE mode still takes a boost like a champ, but we're definitely going to take a listen to that. Okay, let's listen to it now with the JBE mode disabled, and I will hit it with the Golden Boy Blue Boost, which uses symmetrical clipping diodes. Okay, now let's kick over to the drive boost mode on the Golden Boy, and it's using the amber mode, which uses red LEDs to clip the signal, kind of like the old Jubilees. All right, this is the boost off. Little delay. Okay, now let's switch over to the JBE mode and hear what that sounds like. Reverb is off. Blue boost on the Golden Boy. All right, amber mode is on. Okay, so as you can hear, the amp is much nastier with the JBE switch engaged, but again, I personally prefer to disable that to have a little bit more clean headroom for lower gain stuff, but also have the convenience to hit it with the boost for the higher gain stuff and kind of to tighten it up. I feel like there's more flexibility for me when I use it this way, and it lets me cover like a lot of territory. Now, one other feature that I didn't mention earlier on is that this does have a simulated cabinet output with a balanced XLR cable connector on there, and if you want to run this DI, you can, but I don't think that this has an internal resistive load, so you do still have to have the amp connected to a load box or a speaker cabinet to protect the transformers, but you can get that simulated speaker output if you do want to have a dual output signal on stage where you still have your cabinet with you on the stage, but you want a clean DI signal with a cab sim attached to it going to the house. Okay, so what do you think about this little guy, and who's this amp for? Well, I think if you're primarily a home musician and you want the high gain sounds of the full-size JJ, then I think that this thing has that at a more manageable volume and a much more attractive price. If you're a gigging musician who primarily relies on a load box and prefers to run DI or doesn't need a huge stage sound presence, this amp can certainly handle that task. A PA or a mic'd up cab, they don't care about low amp head wattage. They're gonna handle all the heavy lifting for you. If, however, you want a big, powerful, percussive low end and you need something to drive a 212 or a 412 on stage with little or no help from the PA, I don't think that the 20-watt power section can compete with, you know, a 50 or 100-watt amp, and this probably wouldn't be the best choice. Is it loud? Absolutely, but it simply doesn't hit you the way a higher power amp does, and that kind of brings me to the discussion of what alternatives in this amp's price range would be better suited if you do need something with a bit more power and punch to it. So the first amp on my list, if you do want to stick with the Friedman name, is the Runt 50. And I actually owned one of these for a while and it was outstanding. It's 50 watts and it shares an identical control layout and feature set, including a gain boost on the lead channel. And I think it's only about $200 more than this JJ Jr. is. And while it is a lower gain amp, it's not a low gain amp. It's got this really killer, like really raw high gain Marshall thing going on, and it takes boost pedals really well. If you don't mind something used and you want to stick to that sub 2000 price bracket, then I think maybe even a 50-watt Splawn quick rod or a nitro. They're obviously incredible high gain Marshall type amps that would be, you know, just stunning on stage. Personally though, my money would be on the Runt 50, and the only reason that I sold mine was because I already had the nitro and the Jubilee, and like the Runt was, while it was really great, it was kind of more of the same thing that I already had. So I did unfortunately part ways with that, but again, fantastic amp. It's not much bigger than this. It's got a lot more power and punch to it, but you're really not sacrificing too much of your budget if you do want to step up to that Runt 50. Also, last but not least, for you Nano and Quad Cortex guys, I've got neural captures of this amp, both the DI straight from the head, as well as the full half stack with my Splawn cabinet, and those are available on my Neural Cloud page. If you aren't buddies with me, hit me up, and I'll have a link to that in my profile and the video description. And you can check out all the other awesome profiles that I've made so far. Okay guys, that is going to wrap up this video for the Friedman JJ Jr. And another huge thanks to Zzounds for sending this out for me to review for you guys. And as always, thank you for hanging out with me, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.